All right, guys, so recently we had the Chicago Drum Show, and before the show started, we had an event called the Indie Cymbal Summit, where 8 cymbalsmiths, all the cymbalsmiths that were exhibiting at the Chicago Drum Show, gathered for a pre-show event. And what follows is the presentation portion of that event. We talk about cymbals, we go on all sorts of rabbit trails talking about the industry and about the craft itself. So I hope you guys enjoy. Please drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and hit the bell if you want notifications. And until next time, I'm Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching. All right, welcome to the very first Indie Cymbal Summit at the Chicago Drum Show. Getting a bunch of cymbalsmiths together is a little bit like herding cats, and we did it, I think. Most everybody's up here, and if not, within 30 minutes, they'll be here. I figured since everybody's sitting down and we've got kind of this air of like what's going to happen, no one knows, even us, we could start with a basic introduction to each of us. Maybe I'll just give a little quick blurb off the top of my head of what being an independent cymbalsmith is. I'll just jump in. So we come from a long lineage of makers that have paved the way. Turkey is the traditional place we all know of as kind of a foundational place for the crafting of bronze. China is another place. Dates back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and some say even thousands of years. And it's the process of taking a bronze blank or some bronze sheet metal and cold forming it into a shape. And then we turn it on a lathe to remove the oxide crust, turn it into something beautiful looking like all the cymbals that you see around me. And we have a lot to owe to many names. I'm not going to remember all of them, but the big one that looms over all of us is Roberto Spitacchino. He is the godfather of indie cymbal making, and we have Lee Ruff here, who is a good friend of Roberto. And yes, give it up for Lee. And so you can actually play some of these cymbals because you have some at the show. Is that correct? A bunch of them. So I know all of the indies will be at some point leaving their booths to go check out what Lee has at his booth. I discovered, I think the first time I heard about Roberto was probably a decade or 15 years ago, and he was this mystical Italian man that made these magical cymbals, and they were beautiful and they were funky, and all the great jazz players loved them. As I've grown as a maker, I come to really love what he gave to the craft. And so, as they say, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. So that comes up front. We are all a part of this lineage. We have others like Paul Francis that have been paving the way, and Matt Nolan, and I could name everybody, but you know what I'm saying. So a lot of guys that have really done this when it wasn't popular, and now we're in this sort of interesting moment where it's still very, very niche. The art and the craft of hand making cymbals is very niche, but it is growing. There's more awareness about independent craftsmen doing this all over the world. So we've got, is it 8 of us here? Yeah, we got 8 of us. And 9 of us because my buddy Isaac is back there. He won't, yeah. So 9 of us. And so maybe Isaac work with you? Isaac works with me. Introduce Isaac. Okay, so this is Isaac Brown. Yep, he's been working with me for 3 years. Stand up. Yep, Isaac. And he makes phenomenal cymbals, and he recently pulled out, he's like, yeah, I was thinking about what to bring to the Chicago show, and this is the first cymbal I made, first one with a hand-formed bell, and he was kind of like, yeah, I pulled it out, here it is, and I played it, and I was like, okay, that's the first cymbal you ever made. Granted, he was modifying and helping me make cymbals for a long time before that, but you should ask him to play the cymbals that he brought. They're great. So, all right, does any of the indies want to start? Who wants to go first, or should I just call on one?
Just open the floor and start with some questions.
Okay, yeah, I like that. And anyone can answer, so we're kind of all surrounding you.
How do you compete with them? Yeah. You do what they're not going to do. Okay. What we're doing is not what they're going to do. They won't have a custom cymbal shop. Am I in the cameras? Do you want me to stand here? Okay. They won't do it. They won't make one cymbal just for you. They want to have a catalog of cymbals.
Not unless you're some big name, right?
Well, yeah, of course, and even then there's rules behind that. But they, you know, to have a custom cymbal shop within a business like that that's been established, you know, whether it's Zildjian or Sabian or Paiste or even like UFIP and some of the Istanbul companies, it's outside of their business model,
Yeah.
you know, because it's looked at that there's so much specialty involved, that who's going to do and how much time and what do we charge, and you know, that's kind of what their thinking is, you know. You could order a special cymbal from Paiste, but it might take a year. I know Sabian had a cymbal shop for a while, and I think they still have it, but I don't know the ins and outs of that. I put together a custom cymbal shop proposal at Zildjian, and it was like, no, because they like, well, who's going to do all the work, Paul? You? Well, apparently I can. Yep. And a group of us inside that company had noticed the changes in the industry with regard to cymbals, that not only individual drummers like yourself wanted to be treated like an artist, but drum stores wanted specialty cymbals too within certain categories. Yeah. So it started off as, well, can we get certain weights? You know, and everything is totally doable because it can be done. It's whether or not the upper management or ownership decides that they want to do that.
Okay.
Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
I started about 13 years ago, I guess. I'm self-taught, and it's not really so much about making the cymbals, if I'm honest. It's about learning a process and kind of tying that into how manipulating metal results in a sound. I'm not going for a particular sound, I'm just seeing what happens. And now I teach. Self-taught, 100%.
Cool.
End of story.
Started about 5 years ago. I actually started learning under Dave. I've been learning from him, and also someone, name you may recognize, Nicky Moon, was also one of my teachers. And I'm in the New Jersey, New York area, so I primarily have drummers come to my studio and play through my cymbals, and I pretty much just work directly with people. I don't do a lot of producing for drum stores and that kind of thing at this point. So.
You got to say your name and
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
name of your-
My name is Dave
Yeah.
Sagerton, and my company is Sagerton Cymbals.
Yeah.
My name's Steve Seifried of Seifried Cymbals. I started like 12 years ago trying to teach myself, not really having any materials or information. I started doing this right after the Cymbalholic thing went away, so I didn't have any of that. But just tried to teach myself. It was a slow go until the last couple years when I got to meet some of these guys. I also studied with Nicky Moon, like Dave said, and with Dave, and just talking to everybody here. And then so over the last 2 years, things have really taken off, and I'm making jazz cymbals and modifications.
Matt Nolan of Matt Nolan Custom. Probably started as a hobby around 2005. And it just started to snowball, but I guess I got into it because I'd been playing an electronic drum set, and then I went back to acoustic drums, and the cymbals were the things like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I'd missed these. So that's where the fascination came from. I learned some things from the Cymbalholic forum, which was an internet forum at the time, and a tiny little bit from Steve Hobback, a Welsh cymbalsmith and gong maker, but otherwise mostly self-taught.
My name's Ryan Hayden of Hayden Custom Cymbals. And I got into this because I'm mostly a jazz drummer, but it's a never, I think for any drummer, a never-ending search for that cymbal, for that sound. And I couldn't find it. I would hear the drummers endorsed by Zildjian or Sabian or Istanbul that have those cymbals, but I could never get that same sound that they had. I didn't have access to the best cymbals that were coming out. So when I saw, it was during the pandemic, I saw Gregory Hutchinson playing a video with no names on him, and I know he's endorsed by Paiste, so I was like, something's right. So I went through the comments, and somebody was like, those have to be funk cymbals. And so I reached out to him and was like, this is a thing. I wasn't in on the Cymbalholic thing at first, so I didn't know about the independent makers. So once I found out that I could try and create those voices and those sounds, that's what caught me.
My name's Timothy Roberts. I started my company in 2015. I started making drums. This is the first drum kit I ever made. So I figured I'd bring it. Why not? It's all beat up and kind of ratty looking, which I kind of like. And then I fell into the cymbal making thing a little bit later on via making some weird percussion instruments that got me into working with bronze. And now I'm very interested in the boom that we're having with all the independent cymbal smiths and like the awareness that there is. I also spent some time with Dave Collingwood. I had done modifications of cymbals for years, and then I went to him to refine some of my technique, and he helped kind of clear the way with some things that were pretty major. And it's been really cool to connect with these guys, and there's many others that. It's an interesting industry because a lot of us are friends. We are competitors, and we're going to be duking it out this weekend for who can sell the most cymbals. But we are genuinely friends, genuinely friendly. We always go out to eat at one point during these shows and hang out and talk about, each other. Yeah, talk about the industry and what's been happening lately. Certain words that have been flying around as of the last couple of weeks that we will not utter in this room one time. Can we do that? Is that possible?
The one word that everybody's been talking about?
Yeah. Can we not say that this whole time?
Say it. No, we're not going to say it.
Yeah, we're not going to say it. Yeah, none of us will say it. And I have a YouTube channel where I'm trying to kind of gently get the word out more about this craft because I'm very fascinated by it. I've been kind of low-key gathering different cymbals from other makers and finding inspiration in that. And my concept in a lot of ways relates to music and like my favorite drummers, the way that they play, their unique expression on the instrument as a player. I feel like that can be applied to cymbal making. Like you'll play these cymbals, like we want you guys to get up from the chairs and come and tap on cymbals, and you're gonna hear different voices. You're gonna hear the personalities in each of these cymbals because they are very, very unique and they come from us as people and our experiences, our creative expression, the kind of thing we're trying to say. We're all in a way coming from this lineage, but we all have something kind of unique because we're all different people.
So I'm Paul Francis. I've been making cymbals the longest. I worked for Zildjian for 32 years. My teachers were Armin Zildjian, the vast amount of artists that I got to work with, which I feel very fortunate that I got to be in the same room with these people that I had no business being in the same room with. Back in 2020, I no longer worked, 2021 I no longer worked for Zildjian. We don't need to get into the reasoning why, okay? Wasn't my decision. But there was no universe where I wasn't going to continue to make cymbals. So I started in 2022 under the Cymbal Craftsman banner, and then created the Royal Cymbal Company in 2023. So I think I've probably talked about almost everybody. I used to follow Matt quite a bit when I was at Zildjian, and actually became very, very friendly with him because everybody here is an excellent cymbal maker, and I'm glad to be among this company, to be honest with you. I didn't bring a lot of cymbals up with me. I might talk a little bit about sound colors, but I would rather have you come down to my booth and we talk one-on-one. And you can ask me any questions. You can ask me questions about anything. If you want to know about something that Zildjian designed 15 years ago, I would be happy to take you through it. So, but this is rare because as I was growing up, there was no way you could talk to somebody that made your instrument. And the fact that this is being put together and you have so many resources is fantastic. So, all right, back to you.
For me, it's more about the person. So if someone comes to you and says, I like this cymbal, it might be a modification as opposed to making one from scratch, but they might say, I want it darker. What does that mean? So one person might say darker and another person might say darker or whatever the word is, and they'll have two completely different ideas of what that actually is. Or they won't have an idea, but they think they do.
And how to go about getting that darker sound.
Well, yeah, how to go about it then. You have to read the person in a way to kind of understand their frame of reference and their personality maybe. So my way of getting around that is not to do it. basically. So I've stopped doing commissions and modifications for that very reason.
Okay.
But whatever, it's just how I'm happier working. So, you know, if someone gives you a rough idea or some references, I'm not a fan of clones or copies or anything like that. It's just, can you make something that's got a clear this and a this and that? Bit of discussion, okay, I'll try. If it doesn't work, you have your money back, end of story, that's good.
Yeah.
But otherwise, personally, I don't bother. Because
No refunds.
no refunds. But someone will come and say, can you make it sound a bit more purple? Or can you make it sound sort of Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
I see, I had never heard of somebody adjusting the sound. Of
Modification is,
cymbal.
it's a big thing of, certainly I have done lots. I think everyone here has done plenty of it. Yeah, making a cymbal.
More Zildjian cymbals than I do anything else.
Yeah, right. But making a cymbal is still modifying, I think. You're modifying one of these to the next stage, to the next stage, to the next stage, until it's for some reason finished.
You know, I definitely find that I have to gauge the person. If you have a customer that you know, we have a lot of repeat customers, and you know the realm of how they think, and they say, you know, I like this, what you made, but you know, I'm not getting enough stick. Or, you know, so we have ways of communicating with certain people, and then there's people where you just don't feel like, you might just say, you know, I'm just not going to take this commission because I don't think we're able to communicate. So it's really, for me, at least for what I do, it's really important to build a relationship with my customer.
So I don't know if anyone knows the drummer Seb Rochford. Used to have very big hair, now has no hair. He asked me for some hi-hat cymbals that sound like they were sampled off a vinyl record and all the treble was turned down. And I managed to do that with actually 3 cymbals in the hi-hat. So like the bottom was sort of a stack with a reverse china inside, and the top was a really heavy unlathed cymbal. And because I got that right, he then said, right, I want crash cymbals that sound like, you know when you unplug a guitar amp and you press the end of the cable and it goes, can you do that?
Please tell me you did it.
I did it with very loose, again, Turk cymbals, unlathed, with a shit ton of rivets all around the edge. So they had a very low frequency, quite high amplitude, and it rattled the rivets. And they did kind of go bzz, bzz, bzz. So, but Wednesday, I would struggle with.
That's the challenge.
Definitely.
In my workshop in Bristol, in England, I run kind of experiences where people can come and make a cymbal as an experience and go away and very happy, never touch a cymbal blank again. Great. I had a couple come in and they did one each, both 16s actually, as you said, 16. And they were playing them towards the end and going, interesting how that one's higher pitched than that one. And I said, yeah, you're right, it is, listen. And then I said, sorry, I got that wrong, that one's higher pitched, listen. And their faces just went, oh, what's going on there? So while I think there are absolutes and general rules, it's very much about how and where you listen. And you can tell someone one's higher pitch and they'll suddenly hear it higher pitch. So if you're sure you know what you're hearing and talking about, very often I find you need to ask yourself if that's true and just try a different perspective. And that's why I didn't bring any cymbals, because it's a never-ending rabbit hole of stuff to think about. But that's just me and the way I work. So.
Well, okay, so this is a 20-inch blank as I get it. This is I got this one from Brazil. It weighs just over 2,000 grams. So this is like a thinner blank, but this is before a single hammer strike has hit it. So I mean that you could use that musically somewhere probably, right? What do you guys hear when you listen to that? What would you describe that sound as?
Which day of the week is it?
Which day of the week? Yeah. Is that a Monday cymbal? Foggy. I mean, there's plenty of cymbals like this that have actually hit the market. You know, there's like just send a blank out and then people are buying it going, oh, that's such a new hip sound. It's like just a blank basically. I would describe that as kind of chaotic. When you guys,
there's a multitude of sounds.
Multitude of sounds. And so then if you hit like a 20, is this a 20? Yeah. There's a focused sound to it. There's more cohesion to the sustain. The hammering has these compression points that is adding a stiffness, a tension to the metal. And that tension, you can think of like a guitar string as it gets tuned up. There's tension, and then all of a sudden it starts singing out once you like loosen the guitar string. At a certain point, it can't make any sound. Right. So you can kind of think of that concept sort of applies. There's a stretch, and we're adding in these compression points that's building the tension to allow for a ring to happen, a sustain. And let's see. So literally what we're doing is we're taking a piece like this and we're sitting at an anvil and we're swinging a hammer hundreds and hundreds of times. Some of us have some machines, but okay, yeah. So imagine just, an hour of that straight. Flip it over, same thing, flip it over. And you're just kind of slowly, every single strike. I mean, like what I just did, I can't really see the change in the shape that's just happened, but it's a cumulative effect. It starts to build on itself, and all of a sudden you start to get to where you can kind of flip it inside out. The more I do, the more it starts to curve up, and then I can flip it, and then I'm kind of rocking the shape, top, bottom work, and it's just starting to grow and grow and grow. And then we choose as cymbalsmiths the kind of height that we want on our cymbal to give us the kind of sound. So Paul was saying like a lower, flatter shape gives you a lower sound. The more curvature you get, the higher the sound. So then you start to add in other factors like, well, okay, so if a higher shape gives you a higher pitch, what if you want a higher shape cymbal to have the stick definition like you're talking about, but you don't want it to be super pingy and bright, so you shave it thin. That's what drops the pitch down. So a lot of these, like, I'm trying to think, this is actually, this one that I played is kind of a higher shaped, thinner cymbal. So there's a darkness and kind of a complexity there. But that stick definition can still sit on top. And so what if you want a really, really low pitch, but you want your stick definition to cut through? Okay, you can have a low shape and keep more weight on it. So that low shape is going to give you a lower fundamental pitch, but the mass itself is going to carry through, and the stick will be present.
I have an example of that, if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of an extreme over here. Super, super, super low. It's a 22.
Yeah. And so what's the other factor? Like when I listen to that, I hear a lot of stick, right? Like it's not like mushy. It's not like mushy and low and growly. Like there's a lot of stick. So what could be, anybody have an idea of why that might be on that cymbal? If you can see it.
Smaller bell.
That's it. That smaller bell is kind of tightening the sustain. So you're hearing more of that stick. There's less of that volume from the sustain that's coming from a bigger bell. And so this is where, like as cymbalsmiths, we have a bajillion things that we can factor in and when we're trying to design a certain sound. And there's all kinds of things like taper, like how much it thins at the edge, or maybe it thins as it gets up to the bell. Maybe you keep parts of the oxide crust on the edge because you want more control, or maybe you leave it on the bottom but you shave the top. Maybe you have a brilliant finish. Maybe you have like deep cuts, or maybe they're shallow. It starts to pile up very quickly, and every single factor has an effect on the sound. And like tuning, you tune one lug, it affects the other lugs. So every time you adjust one parameter, you're adjusting all the other parameters. So then it's very quick to see that it's kind of an endless thing. To me, at least, I kind of see it as like this endless pursuit of sound. Like you can have kind of a disconnection between your bell and the body of your cymbal, to where like you hit the bell and it almost feels like, What's that?
Like it makes a thump.
It can thump. Yeah, it's like a thump, 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 thump kind of sounds. Thin hi-hats can have this, kind of this like sound that's not clear. It's like thump, thump. It's too hollow. And so sometimes that's an issue of and I like to call it like the balance of tension, and tension being kind of in this equilibrium to where things are being stretched in a way that there's a cohesion to where you hit that bell and it's able to kind of flow through the cymbal in a nice way, or in a particular way. Maybe it's a nasty way. Maybe I want it to flow through the cymbal in a nasty way, give me a funky sound. A lot of times we'll do a lot of mods at my shop, and a lot of times I'll get in certain cymbals from certain brands, won't name which ones, but I'll hit them and there is this like disjointed thing, this disjointed nature to the bell and the body of the cymbal, and then I'm hitting the crash and it's feeling like there's just this, it just feels like thumpy and thuddy and kind of, yeah, what is that word you said? Like the thump, yeah. So sometimes I'll literally take those cymbals and it's as easy as going chink, 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 flip it over, look at it, maybe chink, and then I hit it, and then it's all gone. Because there was just this very slight out of whack, out of balance thing. And a bigger company they physically can't. Like I don't like to demonize the bigger companies and say like they're not capable of doing it. It's not in the business model, like Paul said. It's not in, if they had these highly trained smiths to sit down with every cymbal and to tune it perfectly, they would have to charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars more, right? Is that a fair thing to say? And so back to that kind of original question, why we exist is because we're actually able to go in and take the time to fine tune each instrument and create a sense of cohesion with each cymbal.
For me, I think it's just as different as you'll hear in these cymbals, our personalities coming through. It's the same for our customers, the same for you. It's going to be different for each person. But yeah, it goes back to that. A person can play it that first hit, and you'll see it in their face, whether they like it or not. And to me also, what I've been doing a lot with my cymbals is I'll take them out on gigs, and hearing them in different rooms changes the personality of the cymbal too. Just how it affects we play a cymbal in this room with these acoustic panels, or you're in a restaurant where there's some conversation, or you're outside and the sound is escaping, or you're playing with an electric guitar versus a saxophone. So a cymbal that I like for one setting won't work in another setting, so it's just as much as the personality of the cymbal too.
I find sometimes it's just about finishing, whether I like the cymbal or not. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I don't like it. I just, for some reason it's finished and I just want to move on. So yeah, it's a funny one, but it's basically is my short answer, you know? I don't always like the cymbals I make, but I don't not like them either. I just don't know them. And to me, that then is an instrument someone can get to know and kind of unpick. And I'm not really interested in it once I've finished working on it.
This is just putting me in mind of Valerie saying a poem is never finished, only abandoned. Is that similar?
Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah, put my name to that as well. Yeah, absolutely. How do you know any cymbal's finished? How does anyone know any of these cymbals is finished? You could do one more hammer stroke to each of them and they'll be a slightly different cymbal. They'll still be acceptable or not acceptable to all the same people. So as you can tell, my kind of channel is I sit on my fence and I'm quite happy, you know. I don't know, but I just make the things. So I think that's kind of valid as well, just not knowing.
I find that a lot of people nowadays are chasing this really dark, really dry, really trashy, you know, kind of in this like dirtier range of sounds. They're chasing it and they're looking for a cymbal they can put behind their kit, and they can play it behind their kit and go, that's the sound, and then they can have fun playing it. Sometimes there's a lack of forethought into thinking, okay, you're listening to a record, it's been mastered, it's been mixed, it's been mastered, you're listening through headphones, you're listening on your screen or your iPhone, you're hearing that sound be very colored. So you're kind of listening to a post-production version of whatever that cymbal is. And as drummers, it's like we want to know, or we want to decide like what kind of sound cymbal are we looking for? Are we looking for a drum room cymbal where we can just sit behind that cymbal and play and feel like it's not too loud or too aggressive, and it's just the right amount of wobble and wash when we're sitting in our drum room? And if that's all we want to do, you can go as far as you want into the thin, wobbly, washy range as you can find. And there's some companies that make some crazy thin stuff where that wash is going to really overtake that stick definition. The stick definition is going to get kind of lost as you start digging in. If you are a drummer that plays in different rooms, or say you play with a band, there's a need for us as drummers to think about, like, I have this perspective, you guys have that perspective, and it's two different things. Yep. So as we, in this modern realm of like dark, dry, thin, washy, I think that there's like a need for us to kind of course correct back a little bit and realize that there needs to be like kind of a solidness to our cymbals, and we need to kind of think past what we even hear to take into account like what the audience is hearing and what the band members are hearing. And you want your time to be clear, especially if you're a jazz drummer. You really need the bassist to be able to like hear your quarter note. It's super important, or the band falls apart. And oftentimes I'll make a cymbal in my shop or in my studio room, and I'll play it. I'm like, that's fine, I guess. And then I'll take it to a gig that I have, and it's in a certain room with a certain band, and I play it, and it just like, the lights come on for me. And it's like, it was almost like it was a little too boring for me in my drum room, but it was perfect on the gig. And so that's the thing that like I'm trying to wrestle with that in my own cymbal designs. Is like, I want to try to find that perfect middle ground where you can hit it and go, whoa, that's inspiring. But then you can also take it to a gig and your saxophonist or your guitarist is not going, play a different cymbal, please. Like, I can't hear the time, or it's too trashy, it's too washy.
Don't tell you how to play your saxophone.
Yeah, right. There you go. Right. And honestly, we listened to all of our favorite drummers. They were playing heavier cymbals than a lot of the cymbals that are being made right now.
If you were to play a brand new cymbal off a lathe after one of us lathed it, you wouldn't play it. It's dull and pretty much dead as a doornail. 48 hours later, the cymbal starts to age harden, and you hear it resonate more, and it continues the entire cymbal life. So older cymbals are easier to play. You have to put less energy into it because the metal is getting harder. And what actually is happening that I was taught was the metal is trying to get back to copper and tin. And that's what it's trying to do. So it continues to get harder, and a lot of drummers think it's softer because it takes less effort to play it. And it's just because the metal will resonate longer. I got to go to Carnegie Hall and play cymbals from the Vienna Philharmonic. Okay, pair of 18s. And they used it and one of them was their suspended. Yeah, sounded like 22s, didn't they? That's because the metal was really, really old. I mean, these were at least 100 years old when I saw them 20 years ago. Yeah.
Just use them at the previous concert.
Yeah.
They don't play them out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I have some really old cymbals at my shop that belong to the NBC Orchestra under Toscanini. And they're 15s and 14s and small ones, and they sound big. And it's because of the age of the metal. That's the point that I'm getting to.
It is true that as cymbals...
It's very true. It's 1,000,000% true, and I'll argue that point with anybody. Yes. Yep. Not with these guys.
Yeah, that's a common thing too, that in the industry is like we're trying to get this pre-aged sound, or like figure out like techniques to kind of get to an aged sound. And it's not really possible, but we can do little things that sort of like get us heading in the direction, I think,